Every home seller wants their home to sell quickly and for the most money. But it takes a little bit more than luck to make that happen. It involves careful planning and preparation to make a home appealing to buyers. I'm April and this is Raul, and today we're going to help talk a little bit about how to prepare your home to list. So declutter, depersonalizing, and deep cleaning are something that all needs to be considered when going to sell the home. How important are those things?
Well, they're huge. So when we actually go through the process of getting all that initial preparation done, we always say we got to put our best foot forward. And what's important about decluttering and all the depersonalization is because when a buyer walks in our house, we don't want them to think about our life. We don't want them to think about our stuff on the wall. We want them to think what we're going to put on this wall family portrait, where we're going to put the Christmas tree. So we have too much going on. Our buyers' minds are just going to go the same way. They're going to be looking at everything all over the place. And unfortunately, that's going to distract them from actually the purpose that they're there, which is the house. So when they leave the house, the only thing they're going to think of is, oh, that house was messy. You never want to be the messy house when we're trying to sell, and we always want to try to get, ahead of that if we can.
Are there any necessary updates that you always recommend in a home?
Yeah, so my job as a listing specialist for the Schrader Group is to go into these homes, and what I do is I evaluate not only a 360 exterior, perimeter walk to make sure that the siding's in good shape, make sure that the mortar, the stone, brick, anything like that is up to date. Also look at the structure just to see if anything's been happening on the exterior. Take a peek at the roof if I can, just because what I do is I try to get a big idea of what our big ticket items are. Our roof systems, our foundations, our electrical, our HVAC, and our plumbing. Those are the biggest ticket items that a seller is going to walk into that could be big dollars out of their pocket. And my job is to maximize their equity and their hard-earned work. So when I go in there, I'm kind of looking at everything and saying, okay, this is what needs to be done. We need to work on this, or, this is fine. Let's just kind of paint this over. So that's kind of what I do. Now, as far as the question as necessary updates, sometimes we run into a house that has, hunter green carpet, and it was great back in the, 2000s, but right now it's not selling very many homes. So sometimes we might recommend replacing the carpet, just get a little bit more neutral. As far as updates, it really depends on the client. Sometimes they're already halfway through a remodel and they're trying to say, how do I finish it? Do I put agreeable gray on the walls, or do I put more of a subway backsplash, things like that, and I could kind of give pointers and kind of get them to where they need to be on certain issues like that.
Walk me through a traditional listing appointment. What can a seller expect?
Sure. Well, number one, I'm going to get there on time because I think that's the biggest part of it all. I'm going to ring the doorbell. Once you open the door, I'm going to introduce myself. Then we're going to kind of talk about my purpose and why I'm there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to want them to walk me through their home. I want to know if they've done any updates to the home, and also if they've done any, if they know of any deficiencies. Like if we walk in the living room and you flip the light switch and it sparkles or the light just blinks a lot, that's a problem. But it's a lot cheaper for us to do it now with an electrician or a handyman versus going through it later when an inspection comes out. Right. Then we're going to walk around the house and we're going to talk about some of the issues that we might see. Sometimes we have a lot of stains on the carpet that we got to talk about, whether we're going to get it shampooed or if we're going to get it replaced. Yeah. Sometimes we have a lot of kids that are artists and they like to draw all over the walls, and sometimes we need to get that painted to get the best bang for our buck. Mm-hmm. But we're going to walk through. I'm going to look at all the settling, make sure there's no settling cracks, make sure the foundation's in good shape. I'm also going to look at your HVAC because I'm going to pull it open and make a look to see if it's operating the way it should, at least from the outside in. Make sure there's no debris or anything blocking it. I'm going to ask the sellers to clean their registers on their ACs because there's a lot of dust and things that accumulate over the years. We're also going to check for any kind of caulking in the bathrooms. We're going to make sure that all that little stuff can be replaced because what it's doing is it's creating a barrier for, number one, mold. But number two, it's also preventing water from getting behind the tub. And when an inspector goes in there, they're going to point out that, hey, this is a breeding ground for mold, wood rot, or possible leakage underneath. And that's going to scare a buyer. So we want to try to get ahead of everything. So my job typically when I walk in is to prevent the buyers from coming back and asking for big ticket items. I want to make sure everything's to code. I'm going to make sure that if there's anything we need to get ahead of, we're going to get ahead of it. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to sit back down at the table and say, okay, in average condition, which I think we are right now, then this is where you're at. Or you know what, you have a lot of upgrades. You've done a lot of great things with the flooring, beautiful wood, updated granite countertops, whatever it might be, and say, okay, we're a little bit on the higher side. And we're just going to kind of ballpark the numbers, and I'm going to give them apples to apples comparisons on what their house is worth.
What are some of those small things that are forgotten?
Oh, wiping down the baseboards, wiping down fan blades. I mean, the little things. I always call it deferred maintenance. At the end of the day, you'd be surprised on how filthy some of these air filters are for their AC units. And when a buyer sees that, because the inspector pulls it out, they're going to say, well, if they're not paying attention to their air filter, what else aren't they paying attention to? Yes. So I always want to kind of get ahead of the game and say, look, this is what we're going to get seen when we get the report. Why don't we get ahead of it? That way, when they're looking at it, they're not looking at all these. I'd rather them look at 3 or 4 big things rather than 30 small things and 4 big things, because then they're going to think in their head that, whoa, this house might be too much for us. We're going to be, it's going to be like that onion peel. Once you pull one layer back, you're getting another layer and another layer.
Exactly.
By the time you know it, it's going to turn into a money pit. And we want to prevent that, because we want to always put our best foot forward. And that's kind of what we do when we go into a listing appointment.
So there you have it. If you have any questions about how to prepare your home to list, give us a call.
It's been a pleasure. I hope I helped you guys out. Any questions, please call us. If not, have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you soon.